Mr. KO.
Hello, Brian.
It works. Happy December 16th to you.
It's always exciting to be your own engineer.
Indeed, gregarious. Where are you? Last week he was skiing for his anniversary, so we'll give him that. We'll give him that slack. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here. I was just in DC, and I had a chance to meet with my longtime friend and mentor Paul Greenberg, and I swung by his house in Virginia on the way to the airport, and he showed me the two studios that he's built. And all of the shows that he's going to launch. And I thought, talk about being your own production engineer and producer. I probably went to college, 4 years of college yesterday, just by touring all of the things he's doing, all the gear he has, all the things that he's setting up, why he's setting those up, and I suddenly feel humble. So,
What does he have that we don't have?
oh my goodness, the scroll is long, my friend, of cameras, different kind of lights, different types of controls on his desk to control all of these different things. Remote cameras that he has,
Mm-hmm.
just the ability to bring in. I can bring in streams and other things, but he has like television studio equipment to be able to do this, so it looks really fantastic. Uh, just really incredible. Different mics. Like he has this type of caliber of mic, but it's hidden, like talk show host style. And I was so impressed, but then I made the mistake of asking him some of the line item costs for these things, and well, we would. I'm going to play scratchers following the show. Let's just say that.
Well, you can get by with very little, or you can go crazy and spend a lot. The delta between a minimal high quality setup and an expensive setup is nowhere near as large as it used to be.
This is true, and the barrier to entry, as he described, he's self-taught on it all in the last since the pandemic, but specifically in the last year, and he's become quite. I bet you he could produce television shows already, and it was a super fascinating conversation. And I thought about it as I had to give a keynote in DC, but I also had customer events that I still had to virtually participate in, and the stuff that I have to travel with now is fascinating. I took a picture of it. I was in this room. I had my lights. I have this portable mic. It's basically a portable version of this mic that I take with me. Two laptops, one for my face, one for streaming slides directly, so that you could have kind of like an even view like we have here, and not just a big slide and a little U. And it's now it's requiring new luggage in this new world, that I think is a good investment, considering that whatever variant is next, it looks like we'll be doing hybrid events for the foreseeable future.
Oh, so you're not eager to get back on a plane?
I was just having this conversation with our next guest backstage before we went live, that I don't know how I feel about it. I think I'm leaning largely to being much more highly selective for the events I do, and obviously they have to complement my work at Salesforce, but I just don't love it the way I used to.
Well, that's a different story. But are you concerned about safety, or is it more?
Well, considering the protocol considering the protocol at yesterday's event, and hopefully they're not listening. You wouldn't know that there was a pandemic.
You mean the lack of protocol?
Lack of protocol, I'll just say, and I get it. It's easy. You're around people. You can kind of fall back into habits, pre-pandemic habits. But it certainly would have been easy for something to transmit. Let's just put it that way.
Oh yeah.
Considering that there were no ventilation, certain rooms like the pre room before the main hall where everybody was congregated was tiny, and the breakfast rooms were tiny. Again, you don't even feel the circulation. No masks really, and so I felt alone in my game, being the sole mask wearer.
Well, this is Darwin's way of getting rid of the people who are inattentive to reality.
Indeed, and ironically, or not so ironically, I on the way to the airport, I read a story about. Oh, I don't want to get too far off topic, but a group of anti-vaxxers that stormed Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah. I saw that as well.
The chaos it caused, and how we still haven't figured out social studies and the simple rules of a private business's ability to just say no. I refuse to serve you. That's not a First Amendment right to give you cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory. But with that said, let's jump into the show because this is our last show before the holiday break?
I do believe so. We resume after the new year.
Wow. Okay. Well, then, hey, this is an occasion. This is our last show of 2021. Next time we see you, it'll be 2022 and a whole new year of opportunity before us. And look, that doesn't mean that the rest of this year isn't ripe for anything that you still wanted to accomplish this year. So let's jump in with welcoming you, our wonderful guests. Thank you so much for being here with us every single week. As I mentioned, I met with my mentor yesterday, and Paul Greenberg, and he just had such wonderful things to say about the show, and you as well, John. And he said that the thing that he loves about the show, and this is someone who doesn't need to watch us by any means, but he said that it was very cerebral in a good way. Gets him thinking about things that he might not otherwise have ventured into discovering, and that was a real big inspiring comment. And I told him that a lot of the reasons that we do this is for our engaged community, the people who share their comments, the people who are here every week, people who follow up in comments in between episodes. So thank you. This show is what it is, and this community is what it is because of you. And so with that, I'll just jump right in. Welcome to Intersections. This is a weekly conversational jam session that dives deeply into the intersections among technology, innovation, culture, and ideas. Every week, we bring diverse personalities, artists, worldviews together in the greater service of understanding and unlearning. My co-host and co-founder is none other than Mr. John Ko. The Economist has called him Mr. Creativity, also a serial innovator. He's a keynote speaker who has, before anyone I know, has the first to venture internationally for a keynote presentation, and that is a phenomenal feat. John and I were talking about travel earlier, and that international travel, international events, that I do miss. And I've said no, but reluctantly I've done so, and I do look forward to getting.
Well, the question is whether they'll let you in.
I was gonna say that I know someone who has some ins on European. Certifications required to travel. But John is, he's taught at Harvard Business School. He's been visiting faculty at MIT Media Lab in Stanford. I've had a chance to meet some of his students. He's the author of Jamming the Art and Discipline of Business Creativity. He's a Tony-nominated producer of film and stage. He's a brilliant musician. It's all amazing things. He's also just one of the world's foremost thought leaders in innovation, and continues to advise businesses of all sizes, brands of all sizes, startups, into how they can compete for the future, and even advising on creating new companies to shape the future. Make sure to follow his Forbes column and his social accounts on Twitter and LinkedIn. Mr. John Ko, welcome to Intersections.
Wow, Brian. Well, thank you for that. I will now reciprocate by saying that Brian and I together are kind of a whole brain for looking at innovation. And so I'm so pleased to have this collaboration going. Brian is VP and Global Innovation Evangelist at Salesforce, I guess would be his day job. But his real job, I think, is thought leadership in terms of weaving the fabric of ideas between digital, before digital was really almost a discernible feature on the landscape, and marketing and innovation and organizational change and leadership and transformation. He is everywhere in social media, and he is a keynote speaker, a best-selling author. His thought leadership diffuses across the world like water finding its level, and it's a pleasure to have him as my co-host and partner.
The wrong button. Thank you for that. That metaphor of water trying to find its level. What a brilliant visualization that had. Thank you for that. And to everyone, before we introduce our first guest, please share with us where you're tuning in from. Write in the comments. Write in the comments your observations, your questions. We'll make sure to feature them on stage, and we will get them answered or addressed, or at least featured. And with that said, John, over to you to introduce our first guest.
Sure. So actually, I'm excited to welcome back Karen Mangia, who is VP of Customer and Marketing Insights at Salesforce, which is kind of a corporate type moniker for someone who seems to lead an extremely exciting life, spreading thoughts around the world. More water finding its level, I would say, fluidly. And so her work is, I think, something we're really going to want to know more about, because maybe the headline that describes it might be helping organizations and individuals to design and deliver on a future they want. But I note with interest that she has a brand new book, December 1st, if I'm not mistaken, called Success from Anywhere. I wonder if that has anything to do with the pandemic and hybrid work. I guess we'll find out. But also, I noticed when I was doing a little bit of further digging that Salesforce is mounting what they're calling a world tour of success. It's not from anywhere, it's Success Anywhere, but it seems like it's got your fingerprints on it too, Karen. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And I guess we should start by asking you just very straightforwardly, what's the new book about? And how can you get success from anywhere? And what does it mean to be anywhere anyway?
Well, I think we're all learning that wherever we go, there we are, right? Whether that's our home offices or in person or somewhere else. And when I think about the future of work, what shows up for me and what I share in the book, and actually this time there's an accompanying playbook as well with some exercises that teams and organizations can do together. I mean, what shows up for me is the future of work is less about how we redesign the office space and more about how we redesign our relationship with work and how work shows up in our lives. And I think, we see people in big and small ways thinking about that. I mean, that's almost the message really behind this, the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle or whatever you want to call it, is people taking pause and saying, I'm looking for more. And it's not necessarily more pay, more PTO, or more perks. I'm looking for more of what matters. And so the book explores that. And how do we really redesign our relationship and get rid of some old and really outdated beliefs that we're all carrying about work and what it is and where it happens and how it happens.
Well, I'm curious to know then who the audience is, because I imagine that for folks like you and Brian and myself who have lots of options, having the opportunity to get that white space and to have the inspiration from your book will move us to new pathways. But, if I'm kind of mid-level or, bottom of the pyramid and I'm in a job, let's say, that, provides a certain amount of financial security, but a lot of structure and not a lot of freedom, how does success from anywhere affect me if I'm not in the 1% or the 5%?
Well, I mean, we here on the call, we suffer from, lots of choice, right? I mean, we're gifted with choice, right? Yeah. A preponderance of choices, and that makes us very fortunate. And when I was thinking about the concepts in the book and how to make it relevant to, all people who are of working age, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Not just the person who could write some blogs from home or create some content from their home studios like we're doing here, also the frontline and essential workers. Mm-hmm. And so the book opens up with, first of all, the thought of progressive tolerance and how do we move into progressive consciousness. And here's what I mean by that. I mean, when we're talking about something like work, for example, we all carry these beliefs, right? Like the grass isn't always greener. It's not that bad. I can't change my situation. And the book really opens with an invitation to step into a new kind of freedom and consciousness that says, how can you create choices? Because choices are what move us from limited to limitless. And choices are always available in this present moment, not what we did or how we performed or showed up in the past, not what's happening in the future, but right here, right now. How do we create some choices? And the beginning of creating those choices, as I share in one of the very first activities, is an activity to reconnect with your values and be thoughtful and consider how your values are showing up or not in your everyday life. So that's the starting point, which I think opens it up to more than just knowledge workers to participate.
So what do organizations have to do, since, a lot of at least the legacy organizational model is to limit choices so that people can do the jobs they're supposed to do. But I guess in your framework, organizations are going to have to change pretty dramatically. Leadership is going to have to change. So what changes do you either recommend or foresee or anticipate?
Well, I think about a framework. I mean, how do we take something like the future of work or redesigning work and do something meaningful with that? And I hear from so many organizations and leaders that they don't want to build another plan. They have to abandon and adapt because another, whether that's variant or huge disruptor, shows up. And so I stepped back and thought about it and thought about, what's the life cycle we really need to consider so that we can create choices that employers are willing to offer that are more in alignment with what employees expect and view as favorable. So I call it the 4 W's framework. And the 4 W's are, first of all, work. So what is the work that needs to be done now? And how is that work shifted in your organization? I mean, let's be honest, for almost every organization and team, the work itself has shifted. And then what outcomes is that work tied to now? So after work, the second W is the workforce. So who is doing this work or needs to be doing this work now? How do we need to reskill and invest in this workforce? And then I think critically important, what are the highest aspirations of this workforce? So after work and workforce, I think about workplace. Where does that work need to happen? How much of that work can be asynchronous? And when we are bringing people together in person in a workplace, how do we commit to gathering with purpose? What are we going to accomplish in person we couldn't do asynchronously or away from each other? And then the last piece of that is really the enablement piece, which is the workflow. So what workflow modifications do you need to make, or what new workflows do you need to put in place to support the success and the successful transformation of your work, your workforce, and your workplace?
So, it used to be that we would say, virtual communication is very limited, and, there's a limit to how much you can connect, and you'd never want to interview a job candidate on Zoom because that would limit the experience. And now I don't know, I'm pretty sure it's true for you and Brian, certainly true for me. I've had over 1 or 2 year relationships, and in some cases more, with people I've never met who now I'm deeply involved in collaborating with. And it's not that I would be disappointed if I met them face to face, but it seems like I'm able to connect on most of the dimensions that matter. I mean, what's been your experience, and how does that notion of connection fit into the anywhere notion?
What I've discovered is co-creation is a very powerful tool for creating connection and community. And I think about in my own context, I mean, a lot of the work of a thought leader is, ideally coming up with thoughts, but there's some solo work aspects to that, right? You have to think deeply about a topic. You need to listen. You need to do some research and form a point of view. And what I discovered is when I started co-creating and doing some research or posing big questions and exploring them with coworkers, colleagues, and even people outside of our company, what I found was we built a deep connection. We were working on something meaningful together. We identified what strengths we shared versus what were different. And ultimately, I felt different about that outcome, even if it looked the same, even if it was still, an article for, Diginomica or something else. I felt different when I was able to brainstorm with someone, get curious with someone, debate ideas back and forth. And I think about that motion of co-creation is really a transcendent business skill at this point. And it does bring us to a place of deeper connection. And we can execute that from anywhere. I mean, from a sailboat, a mountaintop, your home office, your core office, whatever that looks like.
So it sounds like in between the lines, you're saying face-to-face meetings don't matter as much. You can co-create virtually.
I'm saying we need to commit to gathering with purpose. So when we come together, what is the outcome that we are trying to reach? And how is being in person going to help us get there? And not only, I think, do we need to be thoughtful about that, we need to articulate that to the meeting participants and also do more upfront planning and investment work in that in-person time and in-person meeting so that we get that result and outcome that we're envisioning.
Okay, fair enough. Last question from me. So what is this tour in March all about? And is it correlated with the book? Or, I mean, is the book a framework for that? Because it seems like a pretty major push by Salesforce.
We've been talking at Salesforce about success anywhere because, and I mean, I share this point of view and speak a lot about it. I mean, success is not a destination or a location. It's available to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And, you know, Salesforce is highlighting so many aspects of organizations and technologies that are helping people to do their best work asynchronously and in a distributed way. So in our, you know, formerly World Tours, now Success Anywhere tours, we share more information about the workflows and organizations that are really moving into using asynchronous work as a talent retention tool, a customer connection tool, and some of the underlying technologies that can help support that, as well as the kind of results that people can expect. And, you know, I think about the work that I've done here with the Success from Anywhere book, and a lot of the message and tools that I share to help individuals and organizations access their own success are all about how we lead that transformation and create our own future of work from the inside out. You know, how do we start here as one person, you know, knowing your values, thinking about excellence and trust in a distributed work world, and then move that forward into the bigger whole. So maybe tops down and bottoms up. I don't know. I didn't think about it that way until just now.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty clear that what's in between the ears is the final frontier, and, you know, ignored pretty routinely. So that sounds really promising as well. Well, so thank you very much. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. And Karen, I'm just in awe of your accomplishments in in general, but in the book writing world. I think this is your third book since the pandemic, and just wow, it's such an incredible accomplishment, and they've all been incredible books and so important for these times. So you've become by default the leader in this topic, and continuing to reshape the future of businesses and work. And so with that, I'll just jump into my first question, which is, you know, what have you learned since the last book and this book in ways that you wish would accelerate this understanding of what success from anywhere really looks like and can be?
Well, what I decided to do was really think about how to create some tools to help people define, design, and deliver their own success. And looking in the direction of scale, I mean, that's part of the game changer activities and the playbook, is to turn over the tools to people to say, you know, there's a way for you to be successful right now in this moment, you know, and here's some strategies and tools and things to try. And I've taken it a step further in a lot of the writing that I'm doing now and the blogs that I'm sharing. I'm interviewing lots and lots of other people. As an example, I think I've written about 40 to 45 pieces right now where I've interviewed people about how they're redefining success. And what really strikes me is how much we all carry these myths and misperceptions about success. Like, I'll be happy when I get there. It's something that's in the future. I need someone else to validate it for me. And I think, you know, what would change for us, all of us, if we didn't make an appointment with success on our calendar for next week, only to have it get moved out or moved on to someone else's calendar, and we could release these two really damaging words like by now. You know, I should be successful right now. I should be promoted by now. We should be back to the office by now. I think when we let go of some of these unrealistic expectations we have of what success is and where it happens and how it feels, we can step into the many ways that people all over the world in all walks of life are redefining success on their own terms and giving themselves permission to align their best energy with that new definition of what success looks like.
Yeah, that's such a huge point, because what success was before the pandemic and what success can be are, maybe there's some overlaps for sure, but it's really up to the imagination and this new world in which we live. And before I get to my next question, I just want to remind everybody out there to share your questions, your comments, and where you're tuning in from, so that you are also part of the show. And so, Karen, one of the things that I had found in a lot of my work, and I'm sure you've seen the same thing, is that because most businesses were so, probably every business was forced to change so quickly, so suddenly, that what ended up happening was the digitization of a lot of old processes and old ways of working. And how are you seeing that evolve now? Is there time for executives to actually say, hey, since we could do that, what if we can do X, Y, and Z? Or are we looking at things like employee experience in ways that we didn't look at before the pandemic? And if not, how do we get people to start thinking that way?
Well, some of the best leaders and organizations who I find are moving in a new direction and successfully moving forward do what I call accept, adapt, accelerate. Right? They're accepting that things have changed. I mean, circumstances have shifted. Whether, we didn't choose them. They just, things are what they are. And so therefore, when they accept it's not going back to how it was or how you remembered it, or that playbook for success is no longer effective, it puts them in a position to start adapting. What else can we do and what else can we try? And within that, I find organizations are much more open to an experimentation mentality that says, instead of thinking about this transformation we need to make, whether that's with our digital strategy, our customer experience, our employee experience strategy as like a 5-year, 5-phase, $500 million roadmap, what could we do with $5, 5 people in 5 minutes, so that we test out really quickly what's working, what's not working, what's the smallest thing that we can give ourselves permission to adjust. And I think the genius of that is when we think big, act small, and break these things down into smaller parts, we don't over invest in something when it doesn't work out. Like, we don't have this feeling of grand failure because we spent so much time, energy, and effort. What happens instead is we start to build small wins, and those small wins build momentum. And when I was researching for the book, one of the statistics I came across that shocked me is, even if we only made a 1% improvement on something we're trying, 1% daily improvement would more than double your impact in 72 days. And I think, wow, if we could get out of being lost in the overwhelm and try this 5-minute fix mentality that says a little at a time and build some momentum, what might that do to move us forward and help us see new choices? I think Brian's on mute.
I think it's a frame of mind, as and then realizing that I was saying that I've got to get better at managing all these buttons. Gregarious, I miss you. I guess that one interesting thing is that executives don't know what they don't know. And so they tend to just, as human beings, sort of lean on what they do know and build from there. And I was thinking as you were speaking that, we're talking to people who are designing this next generation of work, who probably still at one point in their career had to evaluate whether telecommuting was going to be a viable option. And the fact that we even call it telecommuting or telemedicine still shows that we haven't even adapted, new words for this new world. And I remember was it JP Morgan who kind of drew the line in the sand that said everybody has to come back to work regardless if you still want a job, and not necessarily entertaining the lessons learned in these last 18 months in ways that it could sort of benefit the organization. So with that, I think maybe my last question will be this, is that some things to be successful working from anywhere are new challenges and new opportunities. And so for those who have teams, those who lead organizations that are watching, what are the things that they need to pay attention to that wasn't on their daily routine before? And I'm going to pause there because we do have one question from the audience that I'll feature. So I'm lying. There's going to be one more question after this, which is, so to continue, for example, wellness was something that we didn't necessarily prioritize before the pandemic, and are now starting to understand the stresses and the impacts of what's happening, and how that we have to work that into work. And another thing would be, for example, when you're working remotely, you don't always have the same opportunity to be as visible in person, which can lead to sort of networking opportunities, growth opportunities. And so, I guess, what are some of the things that leaders need to think about differently to help not only their business and themselves be successful, but also their teams?
Create choices. And here's how I think about this. I mean, hiring is the new housing, and it's a candidate's market. And as leaders, I think we're used to maybe getting some feedback, maybe some collaboration, and then coming out with a mandate, an answer, a list of to-dos. And one of my favorite examples about the power of creating choices and how this can transform how your employees feel about where they work is General Mills. And, General Mills, we were all killing ourselves for their products last year because we were all going to be on the Great British Baking Show together, right? We were just going to bake things and eat cereal. So picture how exhausted their 10,000 workers became. And their HR team, well-intentioned, said, we hear you, you're burnt out. Here's some extra PTO. Take this, go refresh. Fewer than 8% of their employees opted in to that PTO. And they were shocked. So they stepped away and they did some very deep listening to their employees about what mattered. And they also engaged with an organization that studies brain science. And so they came back to their employees this year, same essential 10,000 workforce, and said, you're burnt out, we hear you. And that's why we're rolling out the Gift of Choice program. Within the Gift of Choice program, you're going to have 3 choices. 1, more PTO. 2, more pay, so literal cold hard cash. And 3rd, donation to a not-for-profit of your choosing. And within 24 hours, 85% of their employees had opted into the Gift of Choice program. And I'll pose to both of you, John and Brian, what was the number 1 choice? Was it more PTO, more pay, or a donation to a not-for-profit?
I was going to go with D, all of the above.
All of the above? Yep, choose them all. John, what's your guess?
C.
You're going C. It was more PTO. Here's why that story blows my mind. That employer got to the exact outcome they wanted by offering choices. Now, the brain science at work is all of us as humans on planet Earth, when we're offered a set of choices unexpectedly that we view as favorable, it lights up great things in our brains that say, I love it here. I feel seen and heard. This is amazing. And I think what could change? I mean, if you think about a Venn diagram, what could change in the employer-employee relationship if choices became that overlap? What are the choices that an organization or leader is willing to offer that their employees view as favorable? And that means you've got to connect with your employees at a different level. It means you've got to engage them in creating some choices. And I think, people are saying they want more flexibility, autonomy, and choice. And I think it's just such a great example of what might be possible when we step into more choice.
Yeah, that's super powerful, and I feel like I want to keep asking you questions, and I think we're out of time too. Dan, I'm going to pop your question here, Karen, if you have time. He's watching from Facebook, and so maybe you can. I think it's either facebook.com/Brian Solis or the Brian Solis, because it's both Facebook pages. I think that might be on /Brian Solis, and. So Dan, she'll get to your question directly, and that way we can get to our next guest. And I also want to I'm going to take the book link, Karen, and make sure to send it to all of our live viewers right now.
Well, in fact, yes. Well, in fact, if I may, just because it's your last show, we want to pull out all the stops. I was thinking about this, Brian. You are the person who encouraged me to start writing. Because we did an event together many years ago, and you were talking about being a thought leader and sharing thought leadership. And I thought that you and another person there had some compelling things to say. And I remember asking you, could I write a blog and quote you? And I remember you sharing with me how powerful it is to write down your thoughts and to put them out there. And, doing that blog is ultimately how I came to Salesforce. And I owe you a debt of gratitude. And when I go back and read that blog, I'm really sorry. I mean, it's terrible. but you inspired me. And that's why I was thinking that this is such a beautiful moment to thank you for that, and to also be able to share with you. This is the first time. This is literally hot off the presses. I got this phone call literally while I was in the green room for this show. That Success from Anywhere made the Wall Street Journal bestseller list.
Wow. Wow.
So it's kind of for me a full circle moment of, I can't imagine a more perfect person to be live with to share that news.
Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps
on my writing journey. Yeah.
Oh, that is so oh wow. That's amazing. Wow. Congratulations, Karen. That is great news. I guess we'll have to virtually toast and talk about all the great things and talk about conferences. So we'll set something up. So thank you, Karen. Congratulations, on the book. Congratulations on the bestseller list. And I will see you probably in Slack.
You can count on it.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Wow. That is tremendous news. Let me get the right buttons to click here. So our next guests are already backstage, and I don't want to take any more time from them than necessary. So Eddy, Will, I'm going to bring you into the stream and do a light introduction, and then ask you to introduce more thoroughly what you're working on. So we have two incredible entrepreneurs and also just human beings with us today. So we have Will Peterffy and Eddy Soffer. They have, amongst other things, created an app called Impact, and this is it's a really interesting app for a really interesting time, and I have so many questions for them. But Eddy, Will, let me turn it over to you. Eddy, maybe we start with you, a little bit about your background. Will, we'll go to your background, and then Will, since you'll be just finishing off your background, I'll let you introduce Impact, and we'll go from there.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me here today. I'm sure Will feels the same way. It's very exciting. And so, yeah, my name is Eddy Soffer, and I am the ESG manager at Interactive Brokers. I've been there since 2019. Actually, today, as a matter of fact, is my 2-year anniversary at Interactive.
Happy anniversary. Occasions on today's show. We're celebrating.
There you go. The stars are aligned. And I joined Will in a very exciting journey to bring sustainability and ESG, as it's referred to in financial services, to the firm itself. And we've done quite a lot in the past 2 years. My background is also, I was born in Mexico City, came to the States at a young age. I've been in finance for quite a number of years, but was always looking to find something that was meaningful and connected with my spirit. And sustainability is the one thing that I found. I married it to finance, and excited to be on this incredible journey with Will.
Will, over to you. Thank you, Eddy.
Thank you, Eddy. Brian and John, thank you so much for having us. It's a really exciting time, as you can imagine, with the launch of the app. And yeah, for me, it's really been it's a culmination of my life journey, really. So you may or may not know that my father founded Interactive Brokers over 30 years ago, and is, himself extremely passionate about capitalism and the free markets. And so growing up, I was just very indoctrinated with all of those rules. And so you could consider I've been in finance my whole life due to that. And so then, what happened was I've always been very environmentally focused. And I think a lot of folks in this generation are, because we're really a product of our time. We've started to witness the destruction of our natural world at rates never before seen, as well as all of the social, issues that are bubbling up. And I was able to, through different experiences, the major experience was that I, personally went into environmentalism. I studied regenerative agriculture, environmental studies, really went that route. And there was a time when my family set up a family foundation. And so I have 2 older sisters that I'm very close with, also very passionate about environment. And at this juncture, I was living in an intentional community in Northern California, growing our own food, practicing permaculture, and really living that the balance and harmony with nature, I would say. And it was then that we set up this foundation, and all of a sudden I noticed, like, wow, we have to have 90% of these assets invested. And somewhat naturally, me and my sisters had all kind of rebelled against a finance to a degree. And so it was at this point that we realized, wow, like, we really need to understand this if we want to do this well. And it was a large struggle to come up with a portfolio that was not contributing to the very problems that we were attempting to solve with our grant making through the foundation. So this mission of creating a values aligned portfolio. And at that point is when I dove into finance and kind of took it upon myself to learn how to do this. And it took a very long time. It was very challenging to figure out how to do that. And we did eventually successfully create that. And, I'll happily report that, some people question if ESG or values aligned investing can be as profitable. That portfolio performs better than market on average. So it is possible, and we were able to create it. And I then noticed, like, wow, if this was this hard for me, as somebody who has this knowledge and background, somebody who has, a lot of, support and resources in this area, how can we expect everybody to be able to do this? And so I kind of set my sights on how to, solve for this component of externalities, if you will, and bring the heart to the finance world. So when I left my experience in Manhattan, where I was working at hedge funds, I left extremely disheartened because I saw just these decisions being made from this single bottom line perspective, only looking at how much monetary profit are we going to make. And that's just so, that's so 90s, if you will. That's so outdated now. Like, we need to look at value in many more forms than just dollars. There are many more forms of value that this planet has to offer that are not well accurately represented with dollars. And so that's when I set my sights on that, and then I saw ESG start to come about, and I was so excited because I saw, great, this is a step in the right direction. Though I saw it as a baby step, I still said, like, amazing, we now are moving in this direction, and how can I take that next step further that I see utilizing the data that we have to bring about the heart component to our financial world and bring about consciousness to the investment community. And that's when, I joined Interactive Brokers at that point, and I made a big push for, we had already started doing some with ESG, but really made a push to kind of take that a lot further. And, we were doing that internally and externally, but that's also when, fate came down and blessed me with an angel that is Eddy Soffer, who has been so supportive and helpful in this journey, and it's been such a pleasure to work with him. And I came in with this general idea of this tool that I wanted, but it was really collaboration between Eddy and I, where we came out with this crystallized product that is now the Impact app. Amazing, and so good time to go into it.
Yeah, let's jump into this. And I got to tell you, before you do, I love that tagline, put your money where your heart is. That was well done. So yes, tell us about Impact.
Amazing. Yeah, that was the goal. I remember when I left working at hedge funds, I was like, there will be a moment when I'm able to say we're bringing the heart to finance. And so it's just it's a joy right now. So yeah, the Impact app is it is a easy to use, seamless, modern investment tool that I think is representative of our time. And so the key feature of it that I think really is revolutionary in changing the way that people go about investment is that the first thing that happens when you get on there is that it asks you, what do you care about? Like, what is deep in your heart? Out of 13 values-oriented criteria that we came up with, those, originally loosely based off the SDGs put forth by the UN. We then started using SASB as a little bit of a guide as well, and we assessed all of the different data points that we had access to, and we grouped those into what we consider a very holistic spread of the values that one should be considering when making financial decisions. And those values are, all the way from land health to ocean life, ethical leadership, LGBTQ inclusion. So we really go for the whole swath of what one could be considering. And you're able to rate those on a sliding scale from this is neutral, like, I don't really care one way or the other, to this is the most important thing in the world to me. And you go through all of these, and it's inviting the investor to take that step, which I believe is so critical these days, and recognizing that every investment is an impact investment. It just comes down to how aware or conscious are you of that impact. And so it invites you to really do the introspective work, figure out what is most dear to me, and input that into the system. And then, you can also blacklist, which is kind of the older methodology of impacting. It's just like, what do we want to avoid? And then your next, what happens from that is you're given, you're given kind of like a profile, a values profile. And whether you have a portfolio already, your portfolio can just upload easily into that, and you'll be seeing it through our impact lens, which is kind of the flagship tool of the tool. And that is a letter grade in the center, and then your portfolio is broken down somewhat in a pie graph format around the exterior ring, and those sections are color coded. So you have color coded, a specific color for this is in line with what you've said to care about. Great, good. And then going in different shades of color, you have ones popping out that are out of line with the values that you've stated to care about. And what's so cool about this is that you can hover over the section that is contraindicative of what you've cared about, and it will pop out and it'll say, you've stated to care about ocean life. You have a holding in this company that is known for dumping a ton of toxic sludge in the ocean. And it'll show you the news article as to why, what is backing this up. And then below it'll show you, a list of companies that are in a similar industry with a similar market cap that have values that are more aligned with you. And we're utilizing our new swap feature, which we've added. And literally with the click of one button, you can swap your assets from one company to the more aligned company. And
wow.
So seamlessly, easily align your finances with your values. And that's the main component of the tool. We also have a ton of other fun things about it. It's the first tool Interactive Brokers has come out with that is a trading tool as well as a research tool. So you can go research based on your values, other companies that align or don't. I have a ton of fun doing that. And we also have a charitable giving component. So you can give to charities on this app as well. And search for charities that are aligned with what you've stated to care about. And, that's just the beginning for us. The sky's the limit with where this could go. We really think that it's, we're dedicated to keeping it current with the time and giving our clients the ability to really express what they care about with their finances. And as we're in this world, like where blockchain and all of these other financial vehicles are coming about, we are, again, dedicated to evolving this app with the times.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna I gotta ask you if I wrote down way too many things, and I need another hour of your time. And John, I'll ask one question and throw it over to you immediately because of the window. First, congratulations. This is so cool. This is so cool. So a couple things for those who are watching. Our own research at Salesforce found that the number two thing, which was only behind becoming more trustworthy, that they wanted to see from businesses all around the world in terms of their change coming out of the pandemic, was to play a role in society, a bigger role in society. And an interesting aside was that in the last year, 61% of customers had stopped doing business with companies whose values didn't align with theirs. And so the economic model is there. We had Simon Mainwaring, who just authored a Wall Street Journal bestseller called Lead with We. That's talking about how to build more sustainable, values-driven businesses. So the economic models were there. And I talked to him, and this is all a setup for the question, about sort of this relationship between capitalism, like the American way, like let's all be successful, and then capitalism in a destructive way, which is really starting to show its head, especially in politics, and then this in this effort to sort of, what's the right word, to make wokeism a bad thing, and that we can't think about things like sustainability or values, or that we can't make decisions that are better for us and better for those around us. And so I'm curious, in building a platform like this and knowing that the economic models, or at least from the customer standpoint, are moving in this direction, what do you say to businesses, especially when, I apologize for the long lead up, but I promise I'll get to the question. Especially with Web3 on the horizon, blockchain, transparency, customers saying they want you to be sustainable. So companies are now going to have to either say they want to be good for the planet, or take a stance and say, we're not going to do anything about it. And the fact that your platform forces transparency and then gives alternatives to align with someone's values. What do you say to leaders who are still holding out on having a better impact, knowing that shareholders will have a say in their success ultimately?
Bad decision, silly decision. You're not going to be successful, It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and Eddy, any thoughts on that too?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with Will. It's first of all, the world has changed dramatically, as you pointed out, Brian. I mean, the pandemic has really made us rethink everything that we're doing, right? And we are seeing that the consumers are now sort of voting with their wallet, so to speak, right? In terms of like, this is where I want my money to go, right? And so companies need to start listening. And I believe, Brian, we're already seeing that. You're seeing a lot of companies that are starting to address those issues. Either they're doing it genuinely or not, but still, they're realizing that the power of the consumer is massive, and they're going to have to start moving in that direction. So I'm excited to see that change, and I agree with Will, that needs to happen. And it is the future of investing globally, not just in the US. It's happening everywhere. You're hearing a lot of companies now, and even governments, talking about sustainability. We had like COP26, and we've got quite a number of global events taking place that are addressing this particular issue. So I'm excited to see it, and I'm excited for Impact to be live in the world to help our consumers make those decisions.
I mean, an app like this certainly makes it clear.
Add to mine, because this is actually what I've said to these people for some time, is, if you don't have a planet or you don't have clean water, your profits aren't going to be very easy to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. John, please jump in.
Well, okay, in my 2 minutes here, I got a couple
and guys, are you okay if we go a little bit past to half?
Absolutely. We can be here all day if you want.
Okay, John, over to you.
So, just first of all, forgive my ignorance. Are you a recommendation engine, or are you an investment engine? In other words,
so we're very clear that we do not tell our clients what to invest in or what to care about. We just make it easy for you to invest in line with what you care about. So we just recommend.
So it's equipping your user base with knowledge that they can then act on by following their own conscience or their own preferences. Okay, well that's helpful. So I had a couple of questions that are all kind of related. One is, it seems to me that you have a golden opportunity to educate people about what's underneath these issues. And, saying that we need clean water is a no-brainer, but understanding the issues around water policy and conservation and so on, there's a lot to know, and similarly with the other issues that you've stated there. So I'm wondering the extent to which over time there will be a kind of a dimensionality to the website where, you could actually become, if not expert, at least knowledgeable about the issues that you care about. Related to that, I'd like to know more about your research capabilities, because you're setting yourselves up as this kind of neutral, kind of authoritative source of information. So, these people are linked to the weapons industry. Well, that's a statement that needs to be backed up by evidence, and also needs to be described in a way that has a certain accuracy. And then finally, one thing that occurred to me is that there are a lot of people out there who've done really good taxonomies of issues that face the global commons, right? I mean, that's I would say, to paraphrase, a lot of what you're doing in terms of your own taxonomy. And I wonder if you had ever considered baking the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework into your app. So that's about 30 minutes of questions right there.
So I've got, forgive me, could you define taxonomies for me?
Well, a taxonomy is a classification system.
Okay,
right?
got you there.
Like we have mammals and we have invertebrates and we have, like.
Roger. You want to take some, Eddy? I can start off and.
Sure, you start and then I'll take it after you. No problem.
Great. So educational component, yes, we've seen this from the beginning, that we have such an opportunity here to educate people both on the issues that are going on environmentally, socially, whatever you care about, but also about finance and investing. So one of the things I've noticed in my life is that a lot of people are very intimidated by just even the word investment. And I think what this creates is a lot of people pushing off or like handing off their responsibility. And I do believe it's your responsibility to be aware of what your money's doing, because no matter, every investment is an impact investment. It's just, are you aware of that or not? And so we have this golden opportunity to both educate about the issues going on, as well as, break down some of these easy to understand financial terms and make it more accessible for those to come in and kind of regain their power as a creator of this world. We create this world with what we do with our money often. And so we're very excited about continuing to develop that educational component. And one of the things about, on the environmental or social issues, if you really want to learn about specific issues, I think we could add in a lot of, kind of a segue to other organizations. Like, I'm very aware of the nonprofit that I used to work with, Pioneers, is creating a university in which you can educate yourself on all of these environmental, social issues. And, we'll continue to add to the educational component. Eddy, do you want to speak to the education piece a little bit?
Absolutely, Will. One thing that we're focusing on, as Will alluded to, is definitely giving our users, our clients, more information, more background, more tools to learn about ESG and sustainability. You have the website right up now, Brian. So there's a section there that says Learn, right? So right on our website for the app, users can go in there and read about, sort of, we hear so many different terminologies now. Like, is it ESG? Is it impact? Is it RSI? Which one is it? I'm confused, right? So we're making it so accessible and in such an easy way to digest the information for all of our users. And also, we have a resource at Interactive Brokers. It's called Traders Academy, where we educate users on all sorts of topics as it relates to trading, right? Like the basics on one-on-one. And we've embarked on the journey. If you also scroll to the bottom, Brian, if you don't mind, that talks about ESG, right? We have a number of courses. We have 7 courses on ESG that are free right now. So users can go to each one of the modules and learn about sort of the origin of ESG, how is ESG being applied in finance, how does it relate to bonds, how does it relate to stocks. And so there's a wealth of information that we have in this website already, and we're developing more and more as we speak. So yeah, we're excited about that education piece.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, and what about the SDGs, just to wrap up here? Have you considered broadening your taxonomy or linking it to people who are already thinking about these issues in a broad context?
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead. You start. I'll go after you.
We started off based on the SDGs. That was our original plan, actually, was to have the SDGs as the values. What we learned from that was actually that I think from a strictly investment standpoint, what this app is for, I believe that, the values that we created and came up with are actually a little bit more direct and appropriate for this specific tool. So we have thought about it, and we're very informed and inspired by the UN and those SDGs. And we think that we've actually made something that's a little bit more streamlined for the client.
Yeah, and adding to what Will said quickly is, we were inspired, as you mentioned, on SDG. We're also using SASB. I think Will talked about it before. It stands for the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, right? So that's a very well-known organization in the ESG field. It's kind of like a well-known sort of entity that guides businesses on issues that relate to a particular industry, right? Like those are the important issues in sustainability. So that also drove the values, and we want to keep them dynamic. The world changes, John, and so something might be very important in the next few years, and we want to change those around to connect with the consumer in the way that they should be connected. So we're trying to be dynamic too.
Understood. Okay, well, thank you guys. Over to you, Brian, to close it out.
Yeah, Will, Eddie, congratulations! Thank you so much. I'm curious to see. Not curious. I'm hopeful to see this really take off. I find it super fascinating, and I'd love for you and Donna also to stay connected with us to keep us informed on the progress. And we'd also like to bring you back to share with us some of the insights that you're gaining, especially as we see trends. Super fascinated to see like the types of reports you might put out that show these values are becoming like the number one thing for 2022. We forecast that to see for 2023, because I think in there lies this opportunity to educate people in terms of the power of investing with values and the power of transparency, because the more we make people aware, the more that we can make conscious decisions about our consciousness and be rewarded for doing so in so many ways. So Eddie, Will, thank you so much for being part of the show, and congratulations again.
Thank you for having us. This was great. Thank you.
Brian. Thank you.
Cheers, guys, and happy holidays as well. And
Indeed.
John, that brings us to the end of another show. Just incredible. I'm just blown away by the innovation that's out there, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful every time we have these conversations versus what I keep reading in the headlines. So let's do more of this.
Onward and upward.
Onward and upward. All right, my friend. Well, I will, if you're free, call me afterwards.
Okay.
And we'll continue the conversation. For everyone else, thank you very much for being part of Intersections. Thank you for being part of the community. And thank you for being part of the change. And do stay connected with us. Visit intersectionslive.com, which reminds me I'm acting as producer and I have to get the next button ready to go. And do also visit our past episodes. Guests are always timely. Always relevant, especially whatever you're focusing on. We have probably several episodes dedicated to what you're thinking about. So with that said, happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you in 2022.